At the end of this tutorial, we will water paint in Blender using the liquid simulation, as you can see over here. And after we've created our outline of our creature, we will use an eraser to remove it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Right, so the first thing we want to do, we can delete this default cube for now, and we're going to press Shift A. Well, first thing we're going to do is press numpad 1 to go in front orthographic view, and let's design our, paintbrush. And we'll use a cylinder. We will click on Object Edit Properties, Normals, Auto Smooth at 30, right click, Shade Smooth, that's looking clean. Press Tab to go into Edit Mode, press 3 for Face Select, then numpad 1, and press G to grab this, and Z to bring it all the way up. And something that's roughly this height, which is about 2 of these squares, I guess, more or less. Once you've got that, you can press S, scale this in. But before you do, it might make sense to press Control R first. Just get a few cuts in. 3 should be more than fine. Then choose this top one again. Press 3 to choose Face Select. And numpad 1. And we'll press S to scale this puppy in. Press 2 to choose Edge Select. Alt and select these edges here. Wait, let me zoom in. So I can, there we go. Press S. Maybe make this one even a little bit thicker. S. Select this. And this bottom one here. Alt and select, and then S to bring it all the way down. Something like that should be fine. And once you've done that, all you have to do is press I, create a cut, and then press E and just bring it out. Numpad 1 to see how it looks. Is that long enough? You can zoom out in proportion. You can probably make it a bit longer, so we'll press G, Z, and bring it down to about there. And we'll make 2 cuts. That should be fine. Press 3 for Face Select, choose this bottom face, numpad 1, and we'll scale this puppy down. And we're probably going to create one more cut over here. Control R, then right click if you're wondering. And all we need to do is just scale this puppy out a little bit. And Alt GG just to move this a little bit further down like that, and scale that in. So it's got some sort of a brush feel. Press Tab to go into object mode. Yeah, this will work. Next thing you want to do is press numpad 1, and to make your life easier for painting later, go into edit mode. Actually do want to make this a little bit sharper. Just bring this so it just feels more like a brush. That looks a lot better. So we're going to go to wireframe mode with X-ray turned on, and we're going to select all of this. And we're going to change to press 2 to be on Edge Select, and we're going to zoom, actually 3 to be on Face Select, and we're going to zoom in over here, press holding Shift and Alt, and click on one of these lines, and you've got this whole collection here. And this is the brush part of your paintbrush. So we're going to go to the Object Edit Properties for this object, and we're going to add a new one, and we're going to rename this group the brush, and we're going to click Assign. And once you've done that, we're going to press numpad 1. You can click, you can deselect everything, and what you could do is select everything, and then deselect the brush part, and then add a new group. This group we're going to call Handle, I guess. And we can click Assign. So now we've got the brush, and we've got the handle, and that is perfect. And yep, that's pretty much, we are pretty much done with the brush now. Go to solid view mode, and the next thing we want to do, let's put it in now, hide it for now, we'll open that up in a second, is I'm going to press numpad 1, Shift A, Image, Reference, and I've downloaded a new image to use. I believe it might be on my desktop. Yeah, let's use this fish this time around. And let's press S2, I guess. G, Z, let's bring it up to about, I don't know, about there. And let's create a new collection. We're going to call this collection brush. And we'll get better with the namings later. Also, we name this in the brush. And put the brush in the brush collection. And that's going to make life a lot easier. We're going to create a new collection now. And we're going to call this curve. And for the time being, we can hide the brush collection. We don't need it. And let's select this image here, which is saved as an empty. Click on this this filter over here and click on selectable and click on disable and render. So one thing you want to do is make sure that this image is not selectable. But before you do that, you probably want to press G, select this image, press G, Y, and just bring it back a little bit so it doesn't get in the way of our scene. Once you've moved it in a good place, click that, and now you can no longer move it. It's going to be perfectly in place, and we'll use this as a reference image. The next thing we want to do is press Shift A, and we're going to use curves. We're going to use a path. Alright, so now we're going to press G to grab this, and we're going to press Z. And we're going to bring it up to about here. Another thing we probably want to do is we want to probably make this background image selectable. Go to the object data properties of the background image and make sure it says back, and maybe there's some transparency here just to make everything a little bit more legible. This is just my personal preference. Once you've done that, we'll make sure we can't select it again, and let's go to the curve. Right, now that we've got the curve, all we have to do is decide on a starting point, which I believe will be here, which makes sense. Press tab to go into edit mode, and now we just select these bits here, press G, lift it up, and try and get it in the middle. Once you've shaped those 4 bits, you can press E to extrude. E to extrude, and we'll make a tinier extrude here so it does a sharper bend. And we're getting there slowly but surely. There we go. And the next thing we probably want to do is press E to extrude and bring it out to about here. E to extrude, and well, once we've got it here, let's just click it once or twice and bring it out up here. And I'll show you how to do this all now. Yeah, this tutorial will just take a little bit longer because there isn't a lot of, I don't think there is any tutorials about this. So it has to take as long as it takes to show you how to do this yourself with your own art. Oh, that cut was bad, but okay. I can probably just select these two, right click and subdivide. Select these two, right click and subdivide. Therefore the cut will be a bit sharper. And I think that's about it. That's where the animation should end. And we have to make sure that water doesn't go overlap anywhere. And that's going to do with our keying our keyframes. Right, so I'm quite happy with this. I'm going to rename this fish curve path. We don't really have to name it curve because the symbol says it's a curve, but a bit pedantic. And we'll make sure it's in the curve box collection. There we go. So that's done. Now we've got our brush, but what we don't have is our paint point. But before we do anything, select this over here and just press Control A and make sure that the location is on 0 and location is 0. Do the same for your curve. Control A, location 0 to make your location 0. Now we've got the brush, but we need to create a place that will emit our flow. So let's create a new collection. This new collection is called Flow, and we're going to press Shift A. Now we can decide to use this brush, or we can create a bubble. Using the brush is quite easy. You just, let me show you how. Press Tab, wireframe mode, select this chunk over here, and all you need to do is right click, well, press Shift D to duplicate, right click, separate selection, tab to go into object mode, click on the separate selection, and well, first select this, hide that for a second, select the separate selection, go to solid view mode, and press tab to go into edit mode. And you obviously want to fill this up, or else it won't work as a intended flow. So we could do this, or we could okay, that looks perfect. Instead of this, the other option we have is just to create a circle thing at the end of the brush, but we don't have to. We'll just use this for this. But for this to work properly, press tab to go into object mode. We want to make sure that this part here, which is the paint brush flow, is the parent to the shift brush. So now I'm going to right click, now we're going to press Control P, object. And by doing that, we've just made the brush the parent to the paintbrush flow, which wasn't correct. So press Control Z a few times, there we go. And now we're going to select the paintbrush, shift, select the brush, Control P, object. Now the paintbrush flow is this. Now when we move the paintbrush flow, it moves the brush, which is exactly what we want. That's step number 1. Step number 2, we want to create an object data properties constraint. But before we do that, let's just click on the paintbrush over here. Right click, set origin to geometry would probably be best. Or even better, press tab to go into edit mode and select this middlemost point here. Well, the circle's already there, so we don't have to do this, but I'll do it anyways. And with that done, you can press Shift S, sorry. You can set cursor to selected, and the cursor's already there, so that kind of helps. Then you can press tab to go into object mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. Now it's at the very tip here, which is, no, it will work, it's good enough. With that selected, we can press tab. Now we can select the object data constraints, object constraint properties, add one, and we're going to choose follow path, and we're going to choose the fish curve path. Now when we look at this, that doesn't look right, so we're going to click on X, just play around with this until we see one that looks right. Let's say follow curve, and seems to be acting up. So what we can do is we can select this, set origin to geometry. That should hopefully help fix some of that. And well, that's already looking a lot better. It seems to be in line. Fix position. And I'm just trying to find the coordinates that work the best. Okay, that's the right position. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, cool. We're going to use forward is Y and the up axis is X, unless we want to change that. No, we're happy with that. yeah, so this should work. Now we just click animate. Make sure fixed position is not ticked at first. Click animate, and once animated, press spacebar. And we can see it move across the whole thing, but we have no control over this. We want more control, so we're going to go back to frame 1. We're going to click fixed position, and we're going to press animate. And now this is where the fun kind of begins. We're going to have to press numpad 1, and I am going to hide the brush while I do this. And in fact, let me not hide the brush just yet. Actually, no, I'm going to have to. Here we go. So I want to make sure it's about the same thickness, and I'm going to use the outer rim as the base. So if I go press S and I scale this in, so it's about S 0.4. And now when I click this brush over here, I press S 0.4, and that should match that perfectly, so that should be fine. Okay, cool. I'm quite happy with that. I can hide the brush again, numpad 1, and next thing we want to do, numpad 1, is keyframe this. So we're on frame 1, and we're going to hover over this over here of the offset factor, and we're going to press I. And if you do this too fast, this effect won't work. So you have to do this nice and slow. So we're going to use the full 250 frames. So we're going to go now to frame 250. And we're going to hover over here. We're going to type in 1. Hover over the mouse, and then we press I. So now when we go back and we press play, we've got a consistent speed. It might be a little bit too fast for what we're trying to do, but I guess we will find out. Right, so we're on frame 1, we've got our speed. The next thing we're going to do is set up our flow. So let's go to the physics properties, click on fluid, click on flow, and change this to liquid, change this to inflow, and we're going to key when we want to use the flow and when we don't. So at frame 1, we want to use the flow, so we'll click on that, and we're going to press play. Okay, well, let's rewind a bit. So I'm gonna pause it at frame 45. I'm gonna click on that, and then I'm gonna select that, so it stops using the flow. And back at frame 69, I'm going to click on that and click on that, and then I'm going to press play, and then I have to go back here. At frame 98, deselect it, click on that to key that, press play, and okay, at frame 102, well, let's make it 101. We turn this on. At 102, we turn this off. And let's just move this along. At 110, we can turn this back on. And I think we can turn it on for the rest of the animation, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Okay, cool. Now, the only other thing you want to keep in mind, you want to make sure that this blob is thicker than the rest. And the way we do that is we go to that specific frame, which is 100. And maybe we even change it at 100 over 101. Just to be safe. This is where I'm going to go to frame, 99. and I'm going to press I for location, rotation, and scale. And 102, I'm going to press I for location, rotation, and scale. But at 100, I'm just going to scale this puppy up to something that is the size of the fish. Now I'm going to press I, location, rotation, and scale. So now when we go to the beginning, we watch this, we'll see it's this normal thin size all the way around until you get there for a split second. And that's how we plan to paint this if this sequence works. Right, now that we've done that, we've set up the flow and the state. You could up the samplings, but if you've got a potato piece like me, you don't care for that if it's just a tutorial. Next thing we're going to do is create a domain. But let me just make this a little bit neater here. So our flow is actually part of our brush. So we don't need a flow here, so we're just going to rename this domain. And we're going to press Shift A, Mesh, Cube, and G, Z, S. Okay, cool. And then there's only, let me just hide this for a second. There's only one other thing I'm concerned about. Let me choose the brush again. And let's go to that blip at 100, which consists at 101. Maybe we want to scale it up here also. And we can press I, location, rotation, and scale. So we got boom, 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 boom. But the problem with this at the moment is if we include our brush, okay, it still kind of works. We can leave it, it's fine. It won't be an issue. Okay, cool. Next thing we do is we have to set up our domain over here. And with this domain, we're going to click Fluid, Domain, Liquid, Wireframe Mode, Numpad 1, and the big challenge we're going to have, let's just hide the brush thing here, and go to, I don't know, 130. Or even frame 1. Let's just go to frame 1 quickly. So we can see how small it is there. Let's just select that and compare that to the domain. The domain is bigger, that's a problem, which means we need to actually make the domain smaller. So in this case, we probably need to make it about 100. And now it looks like it's just about smaller, so it might work. We might even need to make it smaller than that. So we'll find out now in a test. So we're going to scroll down here. We're going to turn on Mesh. And with that done, we're going to scroll down here, change this to all, resumable. And there's one more thing I want to add here, which is an eraser. So if you wanted to create some sort of loop, you could. So we've got the brush set up, which I'm quite happy with. Everything will render. Everything has to render. But we don't have an eraser. So let's create a new collection. Let's call this collection eraser. I should really turn off caps lock. Anyways, Shift A, Mesh. Well, actually, we can just select this domain over here and press Shift D, right click, and SZ, and just bring it down to, I don't know, something about that size, and then just S, Shift Z, and it's large enough on either side of the fish. S, Shift Z, just make it a bit bigger there, but it's still within the domain, it's not touching the domain. GZ, and we bring it up to about here, and what we want is at, I don't know, let's make it end at 300. So at frame 200, we're going to say press I, location, rotation, and scale. And then we're going to go to frame 300. Sorry, make this 250, not 200. I, location, rotation, and scale. And once you've done that, you press 300 and press GZ and just bring it down to the bottom over here. And then press I, location, rotation, and scale. Really, location's all you need, but yeah, I always just select all three. Why not? Okay, this should work in theory. So now we're going to find out if it does. Let's select the other thing you want to do, which is important with the eraser that we just created. It's not in the right collection. We'll have to find it. We need to change the domain to an effector, and we can leave it on collision. And you can turn on planar because it's a flat surface, or you can leave it off. It should work either way. And upping the sampling steps would be good, but it's really not needed. Right. The only thing I want to do is click on the domain and click on this and chuck it in. Yeah, and just call it eraser. Now everything is nice, neat, and organized before we make it pretty, but this should be the end of our tut. Let's click on our domain. Most importantly, we have, let's take a look, mesh. We have to make sure it ends at 300 frames, resumable all, and we're going to bake it in. And because we can pause it, we're going to go, once it gets to frame 2, we're going to escape this and just make sure that it's working. Now we press escape. Always do this test. It saves you so much time, trust me. And it's going to cancel eventually, depending on how fast your PC is. Right? And go to frame 1. Now if it worked, the domain would have disappeared. Now we know it's not working, so we don't have to wait for this whole thing. So now we have to try and do some troubleshooting. And I've got a feeling it might have something to do with the resolution. So just to, if I made that educated guess that it's the resolution, let's just hide this quickly and just take a closer look at this. Actually, why is that there? That could explain why it's not perfectly aligned. There we go, that's a much better spot. I. That's no good. Go to yeah. 43. Z-axis. Next section, 69. Just making this look a little bit cleaner. Just troubleshoot. Right. Every time we key, it goes heavily off on the Z. Oh, I'm forgetting to press I. Silly me. That might actually save me a lot of trouble. Zero, I, zero, I. Okay, and let's go back to 102. 0, I. 0, I. And wherever there's a keyframe, I'm just checking to make sure nothing is off. I don't know why it does this. It probably means I suck at Blender. But yeah, there we go. Everything is on 0, 0, 0, which is perfect. If we jump to 250, it's still on 0. Okay, cool. Alright, so this should work perfectly. The only issue now, I feel, is most likely the resolution. So I don't want to make this bigger. I like the size. We're going to open up that cube and we're going to select it, and we're going to up the resolution to 150, which is right next to the borderline of how good my PC, the max of what my PC can handle. And with that in mind, let's just double check. Mesh is turned on, 1 to 300, all resumable. Yes, so once again we'll do the test once it gets to frame 2. It'll take a little bit longer now, and then we'll escape the sim. Alright, so I just rendered up to 5 frames, and now you can see the big box is gone, and you've got this small little dot here. So now we know it's working perfectly, which is great. So all we need to do is press resume, and I'll see you in a couple of hours once this has been fully rendered. Right, so I rendered it for a few more frames, and I noticed that the water's pouring down, which is not really helping us. So unfortunately we're going to have to free everything again, which is crucial. We're going to have to scroll down to field weights. In my initial test, I actually made gravity 0, and I forgot to do it in this. So make sure gravity is 0. And only once gravity is 0 can you bake it all for it to work properly. As we can see, with gravity turned off over here on our domain, the liquid is no longer just simply dropping down to the ground. It's staying exactly in place, and we'll follow this line perfectly. Because of this, we know that our render is working out well. Now we can press resume and let it render the whole thing until completion.